Well, let me welcome all of you to this moment where we've gathered. I like the term that we have gathered together, but separately. And we have parents from all over the country. I hope a few students as well, some outstanding Lipscomb administrators here. And the purpose of tonight is simply to touch base, to share information, and to make sure that we are as much on the same page as possible as we go into our next semester. It was last Monday morning, I believe, that those who you can see on camera here gathered, and we really said, well, it's right after Christmas. How does this semester look? Any changes in our plan? And after several hours of talking together, one of the things we came up with was maybe this moment, should we once again be with parents, give parents the opportunity to ask questions, and do our very best to supply good information authentically and prepare all of us for this semester at Lipscomb. Before we get into that, I would just like to remind us all that while the year has been extraordinarily challenging, the reality has also been a very, very good year in so many ways. This is the year that Lipscomb University purchased the villa in Florence, Italy, that we'll be using for our global learning program. We've used it for the last 4 years, but now it is our campus in Florence. It's the year that we merged the Austin Graduate School of Theology with Lipscomb University, and now we'll have an exciting group of graduate programs in Austin, Texas. It's the year that our College of Education was once again ranked in the top 17 out of 1,000 programs across the country. Getting A's in the work that it does to equip and train prospective teachers. And just this last week, our business school, I believe the highest ranked Christian university in terms of an undergraduate business program, certainly in Tennessee, and I think in the nation. And that list could go on and on. You know, college presidents, we love to talk about the good stuff. But the reality is there is good stuff. And this university that you're investing in, this university that your sons and daughters are studying at, this university that we are working hard to run in a way that's as normal as possible, is doing very, very well. Well, let's go back just a few months and let's just kind of recount where we have been as a prelude to where we believe we are and are going. A year ago, this month, we had absolutely no idea that our lives would change, that education would change, that this virus would encompass the world, and all of us would be learning every single day how to deal with a pandemic. It was only about 8 weeks from that moment as school started a year ago that our students were on spring break, and we realized we had to bring our students back from overseas. We realized that residential students probably should not come back. Our faculty made a tremendous pivot to put more than 900 courses online in 2 weeks for the very reason and the motivation to make sure students continued their academic progress. There are a lot of other objectives in all this, but the bottom line is we want our students to graduate on time. We want our students to have a productive academic experience, and we have pulled out and put together every resource we know so that could happen. Well, in the spring of last year, we had a wonderful graduation, and I believe that everyone who intended and had done the work to graduate in the spring did so. We had a vibrant summer school program. We worked diligently for 2 or 3 months to get ready for fall. We made the rather courageous decision to open a full university in what was another surge of this virus. And we had a successful fall semester. Just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had graduation, and while students couldn't walk across the stage as one might imagine, they did that virtually. And every name was read, and all the speeches were given, and the prayers were offered, and those students accomplished their academic objectives. And then over the vacation, we've thought hard and worked hard to get ready for this opening, which also is in the context of, well, a pretty large surge in the virus across our nation. But as we go into this, and as we go into it with a sense of courage, the reality is we go in with more knowledge. We've had months and months of experience and learning. We go into it with more experience, having done so many things for the first time, but now having done them over and over again. We go in with more supplies. Do you remember what that was like a few months ago? We were desperately trying to get the most basic supplies, and we have plenty of supplies for what we need to do for our students this spring. And we go into it, I believe, with more hope. We go into it with a hope that the vaccine is on the horizon. It has been proven. It is now being administered. People are taking it. And if we're somehow able to get through this next 120 or so days, we will begin to see how that virus has an impact. And all of us can breathe a sense of relief. We do acknowledge that our experience has been extraordinarily good, and we acknowledge that with great thankfulness and a great deal of humility. As we look back at the fall semester, only 3% of our community of almost 7,000 people actually contracted the virus. About 7% of our residential students did, and that's why there's a little bit more attention on them as they return. But once again, 7% is still a remarkably low figure. We have not had any students last semester who were hospitalized. And so the ability to manage, I think, has been demonstrated, and we want to build upon that into the future. Now, we recognize that our experience is not the experience of everyone, and all of us know people now who have not been as fortunate, who are extraordinarily ill, or some who have passed away. And we're trying to minister to those families. We're trying to be the community we need to be to walk with them through that tragedy, and we will continue to do that as well. But here we are, and I think we're here in a really good place because, frankly, Lipscomb is just a really good community. I had a moment that was during orientation last fall, and I never will forget it. I'm trying to talk to a group of students on our Quest team, and I'm trying to help them understand that there's some protocol here, and if they will follow the protocol, we'll probably get through this. And I was trying to articulate it in the simplest way I could, and so I said, look, it's really this simple. If you follow the protocol, you'll probably be here all semester. If you don't, you won't. And I paused for just a moment, and this young student looked at me and she said, well, Dr. Lowry, if you just share it that way, we'd all understand. And so I repeated it. If we follow the protocol as a community, we'll probably all be here. And if we don't, we won't. And the thing I want you parents to understand as we start this discussion is your young students have been absolutely remarkable. You know, we started with thousands of students saying, here are the rules and here's what we think will be important. We can't make you do most of this, but we can really invite you to join us in doing things right. And if you will, we'll get through this. And so while I would respect and provide tremendous accolades to our faculty, because they've worked double time to get through this year, I would really suggest that it's our students who've allowed this to happen. I was talking to someone in the health department, and they were talking about colleges and how difficult it was. And I said, you know, I don't think you understand the Lipscomb community. And I don't want to be negative about other colleges and universities and the messes they were having last fall. But the reality is our students stepped into doing what needed to be done, and I'm extraordinarily proud of them. And I'm confident that if they will do that again, we will have the same result. Well, let me introduce you to the folks who have joined us tonight. We're all in different places. That's kind of the way we've worked for the last few months. but we invite you into our home offices, and we invite you into what I hope you feel is a fairly intimate conversation. And we're really here fairly relaxed and just wanting to share with you authentically what is going on and what we think we need to do to be successful. Let me introduce all four of our colleagues, and then I'll ask each to make kind of a short statement with their assessment of where we've been and where we are. And then we'll get into the questions that you have either submitted or will be submitting during our time together. I'll be moderating our conversation. I have a list of questions already on my iPhone next to me. And if you'll allow me, I'll just try to keep our conversation going. And then when we get to a moment where it seems like we're through, I'll ask Al Sturgeon to ask God to bless you and your family and our community. So let me introduce to you folks that you may have met as we had a broadcast like this last summer, but who have been working diligently this fall. Dr. Kevin Eidson. Kevin, wave at us. There you go. The doctor is someone who was on our College of Pharmacy faculty. Before that, he worked for the state of Tennessee. Interestingly, spent a number of years getting the state of Tennessee ready for things like pandemics. And it's wonderful to have a colleague with us who is also a member of our community and has been. And Kevin was someone who we thought about very quickly last spring when we said we have to have somebody who can step in and lead the medical side of this, who will be honest, who will be straightforward, who will be educated and experienced, and that we can fully trust. And I just want you to know as parents that I fully trust Kevin, and he has proven to be everything we could have hoped for. Also joining us this evening is Dr. Susan Galbraith. Dr. Galbraith is someone who occupies a position as the Senior Vice President of Strategy. And boy, has she had to brush up on her strategy in the last 6 months. This is an experience none of us have had, but to have people who can think strategically, who can organize quickly, who can make decisions that are important decisions and make them right regardless of who might or might not like them. Well, Susan brings to us a great leadership. She also chairs our COVID team, and that intervention team meets almost weekly, spends hours and hours handling all of the logistics, all of the protocol, most of the policies that relate to leading a community through this. Also like to introduce Al Sturgeon. Al, many of you know, is our Senior Vice President for Student Affairs, also our Dean of Students. He has one of the largest staffs on campus because he's in charge of so many things. And he relates to our students in terms of mental health and managing that clinic. He relates to our students in terms of security, in terms of student activities, just a lot of things that are outside of the classroom and surround the life of our students. Al's in charge of. We so appreciate his sense of deliberate work, the wisdom that he brings to this particular moment, and yet the kind pastoral spirit that is a part of his demeanor. And then finally, Dr. Craig Bledsoe. I usually introduce Craig in ways that are not complimentary based upon his long tenure at Lipscomb University. But tonight I will refuse from doing that and just say that Craig is a longtime wonderful colleague. He's been the provost since I've been the president, and he is in charge of our entire academic program. So think about his life. He has about 300 full-time faculty. And one day last year, he said, I don't know how you're teaching, but in 2 weeks, it has to be online. And hundreds of faculty made that change that, frankly, it would have taken a decade to do without a crisis. But with a crisis, responded very, very quickly. He invented something called Lipscomb Flex, which is our hybrid approach to learning. And he's made sure that your student is going to be effectively taught and effectively learned, whether they're face-to-face in the classroom or doing this from some remote location. So that's the team, and it's a wonderful team. And I appreciate so much the year that they have lived, the work that they've done, and the encouragement that each has been. So, Kevin, why don't we start with you and just give us a couple minutes of your perspective, and in just a few moments, we'll get to questions.
Well, good evening. Yes, it has been a remarkable semester. Last semester, the fall semester went really, really well. As far as illness on campus, I think the statistics that President Lowry mentioned are just remarkable. And that's a tribute to your students. They followed the protocol, and we got through it. You know, we started out in the fall semester where a lot of schools were delaying the start, and we made the decision to move forward because we were on the in a good spot as a university and as a city and so forth. So we moved forward with that. We think we're in a really good spot now as it relates to, we have a vaccine, we have excellent testing capabilities to identify the virus early on, prevent the spread of the virus. So we're doing really well. I will tell you that it takes every one of us to pull this off. And the team that's been identified, we spend many, many hours a week together with all of our teams working to make the university, our community, as safe as we can. We've worked our plans with how we would do mass immunizations. We've worked our plans with how we would do mass testing. And we're really ready for a spring semester. That's not going to be an easy semester as it relates to the virus, but it's going to be a semester that I think will be very, very rewarding for us at the end of when we get to May. So I think we're in a good spot. We've worked really, really hard. We've worked with our state, national, and local public health officials to just making sure that we have everything identified. They have given us really glowing comments and remarks, and they've read our plans, and we've been very much scrutinized. And in fact, many of them have said that there's really not many additions that they could make to our plans that would be any better. And so that we think is a good place for us to be.
Thank you, Kevin. Susan, share with us a little bit.
Well, thank you. Good evening to everyone. I was just sitting here looking, sorry for President Lowry and Al, but we're all together so much, three of us even wore the same color tonight without even coordinating it. We're all thinking the same. So, but it is good to speak with everyone here. You know, a year ago, as the president said, you know, no one really thought where we would be in the middle of a pandemic in just a few weeks into January and February. And certainly your life has changed, our life has changed as well here on campus. But I think one of the things that I've seen in the work that I've been doing, because I get to work with these colleagues and with several others on a daily basis, where we are all working together to think ahead, to plan proactively, to think about solutions that will put us in the right position to have a safe community for our students and our employees when we're on campus. And so we're all working in our individual areas. Everyone here has their own expertise area that they are the leader within, but we all are working together collaboratively as well to make sure that we are in a cohesive unit, making decisions together for the best of the institution. One of the things that I get to work with my colleagues on here is also the communication plan. And so I would just be remiss if I didn't draw your attention to the new spring version of the All Bison's Care Plan that you can access online on the Return to Campus website. It also has been emailed out to all the students and employees. And for parents, if we have your email address, in other words, if your students have supplied us with your email address, we have also been in communication with you. So, if there's any communications that you would like to see more of, or if you have any questions, we have a question line that you can always access, which is called covidquestions@lipscomb.edu. And you can have any question at all come there. I actually watch that email regularly, and we'll forward it to the right person or answer it as we can. So we're looking forward to tonight to answer some of your questions that are very specific about your students, and I'll turn it back over to the president.
Thank you, Susan. Al, some perspective?
Sure. Let me say I'm thankful to be with many of you again. Homecoming, I got to meet with many of you by Zoom and also at some send-off parties. And I just want to say thank you for having children. We love your sons and your daughters. And they have been, as President Lowry alluded to earlier, fantastic. And it's just an honor to work with them. I've told you before when you've listened to times when I've spoken that my philosophy on student life is my job is to complement the academic mission of the university. Your children are receiving educations and they're graduating, and my friend and colleague Provost Bledsoe will talk in a few minutes. My job is to walk alongside in all the different areas that the president referred to earlier and complement that mission. So there's a lot of things that go on outside of classroom, and it's been challenging. As you well know, it's been challenging everywhere. I keep up with, as best I can, my colleagues at universities in Nashville, and we're all in the same city, facing the same challenges, and we would all say that it's been a challenge in the fall, but it's been a successful one, and we are hopeful for the spring. I was saying to two different colleagues today, I really think you will start to hear a lot of talk about the metaphor of spring. With the vaccine on the way, with Easter coming. I mean, that's the way the world works, right? In this cyclical nature, and the dark skies go away, and the sun comes out more, and the rains come, and the flowers bloom, and I feel like we'll feel more and more of that hope. But it's tough right now, but we're ready, and we look forward with hope. Which is a great thing as Christians to be able to say with confidence that we face our trials with joy for the joy that's set before us. And so it's an exciting opportunity to go into this next semester. We're so thankful for how your students responded in the fall. And I emailed them all yesterday, and we're anticipating them responding and stepping up to the plate well in spring with some hope on the way.
Thank you, Al. And Craig, you're sitting in front of a picture of Florida, I think. And I know that's where you might like to be, but you're not there.
It is.
You're working hard in Nashville. So give us a little perspective from the academic world.
Well, so usually when President Lowry introduces me, he says something to the effect, and I have been at Lipscomb a long time, which I think is a wonderful thing to be at Lipscomb. And President often accuses me of being David Lipscomb's roommate, which is not true. I'm not really that old, but I have been at Lipscomb a long time, and it's been a great experience. And as you can see on this screen that you're looking at, these are great colleagues who have worked really hard, and we've all been on an amazing journey. A journey, I think, if we thought about this time a year ago, we would have said, nah, not really. But yes, it's been an amazing journey. And the president talked a while ago about the faculty making a switch in two weeks. And yeah, they did. They went from being in the classroom to being fully virtual or online, and stayed that way this summer. And then we made them flip again. And they came back on campus in the fall, and they learned how to teach two ways in one class. And that would be virtually and also in the class at the same time, because our classrooms are now all equipped with cameras and video technology that will allow us to have students from all over the world in the classroom at the same time that we are doing in the class instruction. So it's been quite a journey for faculty, and I will tell you, they have been amazing in learning new ways to teach. They have done a great job. I'm fully appreciative of what they've done. I taught a class this past fall, and in our class, we had both virtual students and in the
students, and that's a challenge. But at the same time, there's a really unique way for everybody to learn there, and I think our students have responded very well. Let me just say, everybody said it. I'm going to say it again. The students have been amazing, and you guys have done just tremendous job with your students, and we are very thankful that they are our students, because they represent you, and I believe they really represent our institution well. And they step into the classroom, and man, they've just handled the physical distancing, they've handled the screens, the virtual stuff, and they've done it very well. So I'm very proud of our students.
So Craig, let me just ask a quick question of you to have you comment on something before we move on to the list of questions I have here. And that is, you know, we've asked 300 faculty to make tremendous changes in how they teach. And by and large, they have been very, very successful in doing that. But share a little bit about how we support them through the teaching center that you have, and also your willingness to deal with people who aren't doing it as effectively as we'd like.
Well, I appreciate that question, because the truth of the matter is we do have around 300 faculty members, and many of them had never taught virtually before in their life, had never even thought about teaching virtually. So we've had to spend quite a bit of time of ramping up and learning. I think as we've been traveling down this journey through the pandemic, we've gotten better at what we do. We have a Center for Teaching and Learning that is available almost all the time for faculty to come in and get help in how they put classes online, or how they present instruction virtually. And we have seminars and workshops that we have actually required faculty to attend, so that they can get up to speed to where they need to be in this new world. Now, with 300 faculty and 700-800 different classes, there will be a miss occasionally. And if we know there's a miss, we will take care of that. We want to make sure that that our faculty are working very hard to engage students, and we want to know, and students generally don't mind telling us. They're pretty good at telling us. We want to know if there's something that isn't something that's happening in the classroom that is hindering learning in that classroom. And so we want to know that, and we will take care of that if we know it. So please encourage your students. It's best that the students come to us, but encourage your students to let us know that, or you can let us know that also.
And there is, on the other side of that, Craig, there is the reality that not all students learn the same way. And there may be students that are learning easily with either remote or online or face-to-face. There may be students that are having trouble. And so you have a student success center that is available for them. Is that right?
We do. We have a student success center that is available with our normal workshops and accommodations. And, you know, the really tricky thing for us has been trying to figure out accommodations for some of our students who have had to be remote. Some of our students, for a variety of health reasons or whatever, have decided that they want to be remote. So, you know, we've worked really hard to accommodate those students that need accommodations of some kind in a remote virtual way. And we have an accommodations office that, and I'll give you the website on it here in just a minute, but it's or the email, it's accessibility@lipscomb.edu, access, ACCESS, ability@lipscomb.edu. And if your student has an accommodation need, please let us know that and email them, or you can email my office, provost@lipscomb.edu, and we'll make sure that accommodation is taken care of.
Thank you, Craig. So let's get to some questions, and I have a list of them here. And let's start with the whole area of scheduling. We have a spring semester coming up in just a few days. Susan, you've been very involved in as other have, but you've been very involved in the scheduling piece of this and thinking through it. Share with us just a little bit about what our plan is at this point.
Yeah. So we, like many universities, went through quite a few different scenarios of how the spring semester could play out. After seeing how the fall semester naturally played out with Thanksgiving toward the very end of the semester, just in a natural course of sequencing, that actually worked well for us in a number of ways, because at that time we were peaking in Nashville with some COVID concerns, and for our students to be able to have an opportunity to leave campus and stay home and be remote if they wanted to be, worked out really well for them to not have to come back and then potentially not be in a good physical or healthy status for their final exams that they needed to then do. So we looked at several different options for the spring semester and really settled on a mirror image of what really worked well for us in the fall. But a few things that we learned in the fall, we are translating into our spring semester. So one thing we did was we moved our spring break to April the 12th through the 16th. Later than normal. It's toward the end of the semester, obviously, and we do not plan to cancel. One of the some of the questions we've had have related around, are you going to cancel spring break? But because we moved it, there will not be a need to quote cancel spring break. So and we are planning for students to have the opportunity to do remote following that. One of the things we learned in the fall was that students and faculty need a break. They need a mental break. They need a day to just maybe sleep a few extra hours or minutes and not have to get up to an alarm clock. And so we built in 3 Bison break days for our undergraduate classes to be canceled on those days. And so Student Life will have some programming like they did before on those. Those are on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, or a Thursday. And students will have some opportunity to do some things during that day. They also can make their own plans as they would like. So that's kind of the thinking that we went through in order to come up with the plan that we have put in place at this point.
So let me go to Kevin and let me ask you a question that some people have, and that's they've seen other institutions that are waiting 2 or 3 weeks to start school. I would assume that they're hoping the virus will be in an appreciably different place, but our sense is it probably won't be. Explain why you're comfortable starting when we are.
I think the reason that I think I'm more comfortable starting where we are is that we've had a really successful fall. We had, to my knowledge, no students hospitalized during that fall semester with any serious illnesses related to COVID. We did have some students that did have to go to an emergency room for x-rays and things like that for COVID-related symptoms. But I think that for the most part, we're able to manage those in a way it's been very successful. The other thing is that I think, just like in the fall, where we decided to move forward on time and not delaying, where many of our partnering or sister institutions in the area and across the country decided to wait, it kind of put them at a bit of a disadvantage as it relates to being having the resources and things to do it. So one thing is that we've got plenty of resources, we've got plenty of testing, we've got plenty of space to allow people to go for isolation and quarantine. We've got Nashville is a tremendous healthcare hub, and we've got many hospital institutions there in our city. And so I think that we've got the resources to move forward in a really good way.
So Al, part of our thinking about students is physical, and Kevin's really worried and working on that. Part of it is mental. Part of it is just the sense of the psyche and the ability to be tenacious and sustainable themselves in this moment. Talk a little bit about the Bison breaks and how they might contribute to a better circumstance.
Sure. as Dr. Galbraith mentioned earlier, sort of made that decision in the middle of the fall semester of realizing we needed a break. And so on short notice, we put together a few little programs there that actually went really well. We had a Harry Potter movie marathon for those who wanted to just sit in a wide open area away from others and watch a movie for a day. We had pumpkin painting, very carefully planned, and it was a rainy day, and this fascinated me. I'm a runner, and I said, meet me at 7 a.m. in the morning if you want to go for a run. And I thought, who in their right mind is going to get up on their day off from school at 7 o'clock in the morning and go on a run? And it was a rainy morning. I thought, no one's going to show up. There were 15 students showed up that morning. And I'd like to tell you that some of those that signed up were guys and they didn't get up. It was only the girls that got out of bed in the morning and showed up and went for a run and said they wanted to do that again. And it was just a day to stop. And I've been at Lipscomb for 2 years now, but I've read a lot about Lipscomb's history and heard about Willard Collins, President Collins, and a beautiful day that he used to declare every once in a while when you had different accreditation standards and you could do such a thing. But how important that was for people just to stop and take a break and enjoy a day. So I was really glad that we've incorporated several of those days into the spring calendar because it's not easy. You all know that. It's not easy anywhere in the world right now. And we all need those, what do they call it? A mental health break or a mental health day. And so I think that's critical for us being able to make it through these next few months to spring break.
So classes will start on Monday, the 11th. Students start moving into the dorms when, Al?
Friday, 8th, 9th, and 10th. We're spreading it out over 3 days, just like we did in the fall, which worked really well so that we wouldn't have overcrowding in the halls as people settled back in. So 8th, 9th, and 10th students will be returning. Some for the first time, maybe a couple of your students were remote in the fall, and this will be their first time on campus. I know we have a couple that are doing that. But for the most part, it'll be returning students whose stuff's already in their room, and they'll just be getting settled back in.
And we'll have 70 or 80, 90 new students to the university that will be coming. Their orientation is Sunday, and we'll bring them into the academic world. Let's move from scheduling and talk a little bit about testing. There have been a number of questions about testing. One of them is a question about why we have a focus on testing our residential students and not testing all of our commuting students during the semester. Another question, Kevin, has to do with the availability of testing. And you need to, I think, share our requirement for students before they come back to school and their responsibility to be tested elsewhere. But then our ability to test once they arrive, not for that screening purpose, but as we go through the semester. You want to take a stab at that, Kevin? And you want to help him, Susan, as you see?
Sure. Let us just to think about, the testing prior to coming back to campus. We want to identify folks prior to coming back to campus that may be bringing active virus, active COVID back to campus. And so that's the reason why we're testing prior to coming back. And it's not just those that are living on campus, it's everyone that comes to campus are being tested. So we'll have over 5,000 or around 5,000 people that will be tested. Now, meaning that if you are online, then you're not actively on campus and that you're in a little bit of a different situation. But I think that's really paid off. And I can tell you the anecdotal comments that I've seen through the report on illnesses and things like that, that the testing has identified some positive cases already. So I think that it's working really, really well to identify those and folks can get well at home. The other thing is the testing that we're going to be doing throughout the semester. It will it's not ideally, I would love to test everyone that comes to campus, but schedules and things like that would prohibit that. So what we've done is we've got folks that are living in communal living on campus. In other words, they're sharing rooms, they're sharing bathrooms, they're sharing facilities where they eat, and they're together so much. So if we can identify cases on campus much more quickly, then we can also identify and mediate the spread of the virus. And so that's really our goal there. And that's been done at some other institutions and with really good success. I think it's going to be a hard and busy task for us all, including your students. But just knowing that our heart is with them and keeping them safe and healthy and having a successful academic semester is our goal. It's not for any other reason.
So we're really testing with some additional intensity those students who in the fall actually were more positive. Residential students had about a 7% positivity rate. Our overall student body about 3%. So there's a reason for focusing our testing capability on residential students, but those aren't the only ones that are tested. Faculty and staff are tested as they have any sense of the virus. We also have athletes, about 300, that are tested 3 times a week, because we also realize there's some vulnerability there that might be a little different. So that is something that we have a plan for. The plan can be adjusted, but we want everyone to know at least the reasons behind that.
Hey,
So
President
let's
Lowry,
assume, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as we're talking about testing, one question that has come up around this is, you know, everyone is being so proactive in having their students be tested, and now there's some concern from some people of, what if my student's test doesn't come back in time for them to move in? I've tested on Monday, but it doesn't come back, and they're supposed to move in on Saturday. And Kevin, you can affirm that this is, I think, the case, but those students can't go back into the general population of students in the dorm until their test comes back negative. So we will have a means to have them in quarantine on campus, like we have our other students in any kind of situation like that, and be able to administer whatever might be needed for them in that day or so while they need to be waiting for that test to come back. So we know that you're trying your best as parents and students to get these tests done, and we're going to work hard on the other side to make sure that we're working with you on those few cases where the test may not come back. In Nashville, our tests are coming back within 24 hours in a lot of cases. So hopefully yours will be too.
And let me add to that, in the classroom, if a student is unable to have a test completed or get the results back, students will be able to virtually attend that class until the test comes back. So they shouldn't miss a beat academically.
So let's talk a little bit about medical care in Nashville. I know that the virus is doing different things in different parts of the country. I was watching television news earlier tonight, and boy, it's really hard to imagine what is happening in some cities. But Nashville is not experiencing what some others are in terms of a desperate healthcare system. Kevin, why don't you talk a little bit about really healthcare in Nashville and our access for it?
Right. You know, we do have a health sciences program, our College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences program. And so we have pharmacists, PA, nursing, dietetic interns, et cetera, and those programs. And that's, around 500 or 600 students. And so those students are out on rotations. They're out helping administer the COVID vaccine across really the Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Northern Alabama area, and great masses. And so over the last 2 weeks, we had students working very, very hard to man COVID vaccination clinics. And so, we're a sense of a community, and everyone, we're following the state and CDC guidelines as to who gets vaccinated, when you get vaccinated, and whether or not it's required or not. We'll follow those guidelines as it relates to how that works. And so just know that, we're those students, as even a part of even going into, say, Vanderbilt Hospital or one of the HCA hospitals or county hospitals in the Middle Tennessee area, they're being tested. So I wanted to go back to that. There's a lot of tests being administered right now for our students. There's a lot of our students working very hard to get the vaccine out. We even on campus have identified areas where we can store vaccine with those special freezers that go down to significantly cold or frozen temperatures. And so we've got identified many of those that we have on campus. And so we're able to even help and be backups for some of the facilities in Nashville and the health department. And like I said, we've been inspected, we've been toured by folks with the health department, and they know what our capabilities are, and they're leaning on us heavily.
So we only had a couple of occasions, Kevin, in the fall to have a student who needed to go to the hospital for a test we couldn't administer or couldn't be done at a walk-in clinic. We had no one that was hospitalized overnight that I recall. But let's say I'm a parent and I have a child and they have an unusual case of this. Do you have any concerns about them getting the health care they need in Nashville?
I really think that right now in Nashville, we're capable of delivering what needs to be done on a routine basis for your child. I would, being a parent and knowing that, I think that is key for me to have some comfort of knowing that sending my child to Nashville, the capabilities and resources are available.
And I would just add a couple things to that. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but we have an entire hospital that has at least 2 floors that are ready for COVID patients. And that has not even been accessed by our healthcare system yet over at General Hospital. Is that right?
That is correct.
And then we have contingency plans at Vanderbilt and also with the Corps of Engineers, where they worked this summer to say if we had to open additional hospital beds in Nashville, they literally have plans to do that by the hundreds of beds. So if we got to the point that was necessary, they could do that. We're just simply not at the point where our capacity is stretched so that that's necessary.
Right. Correct.
So I always like it when you think I'm correct. That gives me great encouragement. But okay, so medical care, we have that beyond the university in case of things that are really difficult. Susan, talk a little bit about what we're doing on campus and the logistics of isolation and quarantine. Boy, those words sound so dramatic. But the reality is we just take those folks who test positive and put them in a good, safe place. And we take those that are exposed and keep them in a good, safe place. And tell us a little bit about the logistical challenges you've overcome to provide great services.
Well, we have had a good work through of the isolation and quarantine protocols last semester. And so a lot of the things that we may needed to have realized and learned, we have learned, and it went well. And we actually did surveys of all of the students who were in isolation and quarantine before the end of the semester. And those results came back, the survey results came back very positive. I mean, I think if you're complaining because you had to have turnip greens for lunch one day or something, I think that might have been the worst complaint. And I'm from the South, so turnip greens for lunch is not quite so bad for me. But we do know that students may not appreciate that. So so we are looking at how we can look at that food menu a little bit for them. But really and truly, they didn't have very much to say negatively about the situation. No one wants to be in quarantine, obviously. And no one wants to be in isolation, so it's no fun. But we are, I think, doing a good job for our students in that regard. we have one of the reasons that our residential students is one of our focus points is because they are the ones that if they don't have a place to go, we are responsible for housing them somewhere on our campus. Commuter students obviously have a home to go home to. And many residential students do as well because they live within the region and they're going to go home if they aren't feeling well or need to be quarantined. But for those who can't, we do have the capability to house, anywhere from 40 to 100 or so on campus at this point, with plans for expansion if it is needed going forward.
And so, Al, your staff is taking care of those students from the standpoint of everything except the health side. Tell us about your creative work with our social workers.
Yeah, sure. We were, as President Lowry has mentioned in the past, this is not easy or even cheap for us to be able to adjust to the needs. And so thankfully, we were able to hire an extra student care coordinator in our Office of Student Wellbeing to focus completely on COVID situations and deal with our students in quarantine and isolation. And she has done a fantastic job of interacting with them and helping us think through these protocols and see where the holes are, where we can shore things up a little more effectively. But in addition to her, in addition to the staff, and in addition to the cafeteria and the services that are provided there, we also offer extra wraparound sort of care in terms of spiritual resources through our Office of Spiritual Formation when students are away from others for a while. Our campus recreation director offers exercises, things that you can do in your room whenever you're alone and have some time to yourself there too. So it really, developed, as Dr. Galbraith said so well, over the course of the semester. I mean, we had to do it, and we'd never done it before. But by the end of the semester, we felt like what we were doing well at the first, we were doing much more effectively at the end. And so we enter into a new semester feeling confident about our plan and the care that we have. I'll walk by our student care coordinator's office a lot and I'll just see that glow going on because she's having a one-on-one conversation with someone who's in quarantine and who's feeling a little lonely, but they have someone checking on them regularly and understanding their needs and helping make sure things get taken care of for them.
So Kevin, we have changed slightly the time that we require someone to be in quarantine. Can you share that in the CDC guidance on that?
CDC did make a change or a suggestion that we change our quarantine guidelines. They still recommend 14 days, but they will allow us to do 10 days, provided that, there are no symptoms at the end of those 10 days. And they did say that we could do 7 days, provided that there was a test and a negative test at the end of day 5, 6, or 7. But we felt as though, to really be safe and that we did not miss any people that would fall through and not convert positive after day 7 was a significant increase between 7 and day 10. So we felt like it would be better just to adopt 10. So we're down from the 14 days of quarantine to 10, and we will monitor very, very carefully. I also wanted to point out, what a great state Tennessee is and our vaccination efforts. Tennessee is one of the top 5 states in the country as far as administering vaccine. And in fact, to date has administered over 152,000 doses, which is almost 3 times as much as some other states have been administered. And so I want you to know that our partnership with the state health department is really strong and it's really working out well in Tennessee.
And I might just piggyback on that to say something that I want to be slightly careful about, but we have some really well-placed alumni that are closely connected to Lipscomb and also managing a good bit of all the healthcare for the state. And since she is a public figure, Dr. Lisa Piercy, who is our Commissioner of Health for the state, is a Lipscomb graduate. And she moved her daughter into Elam Residence Hall last fall. She has personally reviewed our plans for all of this and endorsed kind of the direction and the expertise that's being applied. So there are a number of people that are a part of our community, yet located professionally in our state, and they've been of tremendous assistance to us during this time. So Susan, if you're going to summarize the changes from fall to spring, you've rewritten the All Bison Care Plan, and there are some differences there. What would you just underscore for us as the differences between the semesters?
I think there are probably 3 or 4 that I'll just briefly list, just in summary. One is testing for all students before they come back in January. That is a marker for us. We want to start strong. We want to start well. And this is a means for us to do that. And so that's one piece. The surveillance testing throughout the semester will be another one that will be very helpful for us in a population of students, residential, that are of an area where our largest concern area from last time, and where it stresses us many of our capabilities to house that many students should they get need housing. It stresses our system to where we may be in a bind ourselves. So that would be another. The change on the calendar for spring break, that's definitely one everyone needs to take note of. And then I think another one is we learned last semester about interactions and what works well, and our classroom settings worked really well, and we did not have significant spreading of the virus through classroom settings. And so we are going to try this semester, Al and his team in particular, to open up a few more opportunities for students to engage on campus in a different way that will feel a little bit more like a classroom setting, but for social gatherings. We still have to wear masks, and we still have to be physically distanced, and we still have to have like a monitor as a faculty member would be the kind of room monitor. But we're going to make a change there and have a more engaging events for students. So those would be some of the key things that I think would be differences from last semester.
So let me address a question that's been asked a variety of ways, and let me just share a little bit, since I don't have a chief financial officer on the call. That is the question about, will the university issue refunds? And people have a whole variety of things they think we might issue a refund for. Let me just step back a little bit and give you a little bit of perspective on the cost of this moment to the university and our policies in that regard. As we started, we made the commitment to spend whatever we had to spend to be ready for the fall, and to continue spending what we need to spend to have a safe and productive year. By the time we got to the fall semester, we'd spent something over $3 million, and we've continued to spend an enormous amount of money in order to do everything we can, both for learning and for safety. The reality is that, unlike what people might think, online learning is not necessarily less expensive. If you talk to our faculty, it is not easier. They are spending an enormous amount of time preparing for every single class. And our expenses at the university, even if, for instance, your student went home at Thanksgiving and for 2 weeks didn't eat a number of meals, most of our expenses continue in fairly profound ways. All the staff that were hired to take care of them and be here for the spring still have to be paid in November and December. And the food that is ordered and was available still is something that has to be purchased. So there is, I think, a bit of a misperception that somehow we are saving money on this virus. The reality is we are spending millions to have the most productive year we can. And we made the decision very early not to try to pass any of that on to students. And so whatever those expenses are our expenses. And we are working diligently to manage a budget to accommodate a very, very unexpected financial moment. So the policies, and you can get more detail if you need to, but we would not expect to refund tuition simply because we add another approach to learning, which is a remote capability. And we would not expect to refund room and board in most cases simply because a student chooses to be at home as opposed to on campus for a portion of this semester. And I don't want to be difficult about that, but I do want you to understand that we have invested heavily and we have purposely not passed that expense on because we know of your challenges in just paying what you expected to pay for this academic year. So let's get to the end of this a little bit chronologically. Craig, let's assume we have a wonderful semester and we get through it on time like we expect. We have graduation scheduled. And it's my assumption that we will do our best to have an in-person graduation. But if that's not possible, we will have a virtual graduation, and we're getting better at that. So share a little bit about how you'd like to see this year end.
Well, I would love to see it end with a live graduation. Graduation is the culmination of what we do at Lipscomb. It is it's actually the most fun event I go to, and I think the president feels the same way. And it's just wonderful to see students walk across the stage and get their degrees. And our plan would be to do that and to have a live graduation. We're not going to say exactly that we're 100% there, but we're going to continue to monitor things as they move forward. And we're going to do everything that we possibly can to have a live graduation to celebrate this really important event that we have. If we don't, we will have a virtual graduation, and we've gotten good at that. Unfortunately and fortunately, we've gotten good at that, but I think we can do a good job with that. But we really want to have our students and be able to celebrate with them and with you as parents, because I know it's an important moment for you all also.
And I think Craig is right. Students obviously deserve that moment. Parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters want to celebrate it. But you should not underestimate how meaningful it is to our academic community to see that we have completed what we started. School is not about the beginning. School is about completing our journey. And that is the moment where it happens. And we want to make sure that we celebrate as completely as we can. We're getting a little near the end of our time, so let me ask this. Let me ask each of you to think about something that you would share with parents at this moment. I think all of you are parents. Some of you have been at that long enough that you've had kids go to and go through college. And I'd just like you to share a comment. Before we do that, let me make one statement about safety and security. And Al, you might want to add a little bit to this. Obviously, on the 25th of December, we had a tragic and very, very frightening moment in Nashville with a bombing downtown. As you probably have followed that, it was an isolated event with someone who probably has lived a very, very sad life and wanted to make a statement at the end of that life. Ironically, did not want people apparently to die, just wanted to make a statement and be remembered. We have been involved on the edges of some of that, and Al might speak to it. But just let me make sure you understand that while that would have received justifiably national attention, we have no information, and we work very closely with Metro Police. We have no indication that there's any threat or any continuing danger from that moment. Al, you have our 25 security officers who report to you, a very sophisticated group. What comment would you make on this?
Sure, thank you. I have two adult daughters, and I wanted to tell them all their lives that nothing bad would ever happen and there's no risk anywhere in the world. But unfortunately, we all know that's not true. But thankfully, please know that your children are on a safe campus. We just published our annual safety report, and schools put those online, and you can look around, and we have a very safe campus. We're located in Green Hills. Many of you know that, which is a safe neighborhood in Nashville, statistically speaking. We have a fantastic department. Chief Dickerson is a leader of our campus security department. He's completing his doctorate in education. He not only has a fantastic love and history with law enforcement, but he sees this as an education for an opportunity for your students. He has three captains. Captain Mobbs, Captain Lumpkins have been here before. We just hired Captain Barletta, who worked for Bridgestone and the Nashville Predators in security and communications downtown. And they met him through all the interactions that go on with our group, with Nashville law enforcement, with other colleges and universities, with the FBI, with Secret Service. We have fantastic communications. There was a question that was turned in that said, will we be reviewing our safety protocols? And I want to say the answer to that is we are constantly reviewing our safety protocols. And so you don't see major changes because we are in constant review of those. On Christmas Day, we're here. We have security here all the time. And we were here, and you probably knew from watching the news, AT&T outages happened as a result of the bombing. Our phone lines to our dispatch weren't able to work. So our chief and our team was getting message out to the few international students and athletes on campus of how to contact them, how to call 911. They are on top of things. And I just want you to feel as safe as a person can feel in this world of unpredictability, that you have people that love and care for and are professionals protecting our campus.
I would just add to that on Christmas Day, within a few minutes of the bombing, our security people had taken the initiative to ascertain whether our campus, which was only 3 blocks away downtown, had sustained any damage, and thankfully it had not. And then they took the initiative, since it had not been damaged, to share it as a resource with federal law enforcement people who I think have been in it for a number of days now. So we want to both be protective of our campus and our campus community, but we also want to be generous to the larger Nashville community, which Kyle certainly was. So if there are any particular questions people have we've not answered, again, we will respond to you because we have those questions if we know your identity. And if you have anything else or would like to ask them again, there is the COVID questions website. And I'm sure at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, Susan will be on it and distributing those questions so that you folks have timely answers. So why don't you all just say whatever you think you need to say and should say and could say to the parents of our students and to those students listening in about our next semester. Jump in, somebody.
I'll start and say that we're going to have to be very vigilant, but things can look up. But we need to start well, and so that we can finish well. And just for your students to pay attention to the messaging that comes out. That's a lesson for all of us. Check our email, pay attention, read what's sent to you, and we're going to have a good semester. That's the intention, and we have good plans in place for that.
And I'll step in after that and say that on the academic side, the faculty are really excited to see the students come back. I'm not sure who hated being completely remote more, whether the students or the faculty, but faculty generally really love to be with your students, and we look forward to them coming back and spending time in class and helping them in however we can towards their academic progress. And we pledge on behalf of the faculty, I pledge that we will do that and that we will work hard. And you need to let us know how we can help in that success.
Kevin,
I guess
Susan?
I would share that we want to be partners with you. We want to share with you transparently and provide you with all the information that we can. I know there's been some questions that some parents have asked about how much can you share about my child's progress during this time. Well, we do have FERPA laws and HIPAA laws that we have to work through, so we can't just share everything. But we do want to be in communication with you. So if you are not receiving the parent emails that we're sending out, if you will email covidquestions@lipscomb.edu and let me know that, I will get you on the distribution list. It's an Emma distribution list, so you can unsubscribe when your student graduates or whatever you would like to do later. So go ahead and send your email in and we'll get you on the parent email list. I want to echo what Al said too about we're excited for the students to come back. It's going to be a hard semester. I think it's going to be a hard semester because we're tired. We all want it to be different, and we're looking forward to it being different. But we've got to go through a few more months and just be diligent. And I think our students will rise to that occasion just like they did in the fall. And so I'm really looking forward to it.
And we love your students. We're so excited for them to come back, and I worry about them. I pray for them on a continuous basis, and I think that we will have a successful semester. We've got to start out strong and do, as Al said, doing everything that we can to be strong for the rest of the semester. So I'm excited to see your students with us next week.
And so we thank each of you for your interest in the university. We thank you for your passion for your young people who are students here. We thank you, as Susan said, for your partnership as we walk through something that none of us have been through before, but with a sense that we can do this, we can do it well, and your students can make the academic progress they expect. I share fairly often now a picture I have in my home of a bison. One that I actually got from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It's about 4 feet by 6 feet. And this bison, instead of a silhouette, is looking you straight in the face, straight in the eye, covered with ice. You know it's a fairly miserable moment, whoever took that picture. But I look at the bison and I think, well, there's an animal that is used to some adversity. And there's an animal that has a sense of tenacity. And there's an animal that has a sense of confidence and even a sense of memory that relates to hope that, spring will come. And when spring comes, there's going to be a moment where the grass is taller and the sun is shining brighter and renewal will take place. And as the bison herd, if you will, we need to have the same attributes. We need to be tenacious. We need to be confident. And we need also to have the hope that in our case is not just something that comes from our surroundings, but something that comes from our faith as well. So we wish you God's blessings and providence. We ask you to pray for us as we will be praying for you. And we want to lift this community up so that it is able to accomplish the mission set out now 130 years ago. Al, lead us in a word of prayer and let you all know, let me let you know how much we appreciate you and we'll be thinking of you as well.
Let's pray. Dear Father, the Apostle Paul taught not to be anxious about anything, but to give our request to you. And he said to do that with thanksgiving. So we begin with thanks for the ways that you have blessed us and cared for us, with thanks for the opportunities that are in front of us, with thanks for our families and our students and for the parents, for all the people that are working hard at Lipscomb University. We continue to lay before you a request for health. We pray for the world. We pray for our nation. We pray for our state and for our city, and specifically for our campus. We pray for health. We pray for our students. for their health, for their families, for their education. And we pray for their future. May they be trained to go out in the world and use their gifts for your kingdom and your kingdom purposes. We pray for faith. We try to pray with joy for trials, because we know that they produce patience and perseverance and qualities that lead us to be mature and complete. But now we especially look forward to resurrection. May you keep before our minds the hope that Jesus brought, that no matter what we face, that there's rebirth and resurrection that's coming. And we pray for that in this world and at this university. We offer this all to you in thanks this evening through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Good night.